You're listening to Remnant Radio 100.1 FM with your host, Captain Courageous, this morning, Captain Courageous. And I got that name because I've been a pretty courageous guy over the last 14 years. My friends dubbed me that name. I didn't give it to myself. I suppose riding your bicycle across America to promote your foundation about the sexual abuse of men is pretty courageous. So I wear it with pride. So, well, we're going to get back, and I'm going to kind of stay where I was, but there's another part of this that I hear a lot, and questions that's asked, is why does God allow tragedy? And I think that's a very common question asked among a lot of people, especially new believers or people that are just, they're struggling even with God. And if God's so good, why does he allow all this to happen? Well, the reality is, like my therapist used to tell me all the time, "Man, it's none of your business." Okay, then. But I think there's some stuff along the way, some scriptures and some explanations that can give us some kind of clarity as to why he allows tragedy to happen. And yeah, I just wonder back, when Paul was in prison, was he asking God, why do you allow tragedy? Or, when Christ was hanging on the cross, did he ask, why did you allow tragedy, God? I mean, I think it's a mindset of today's world. It's like I tell a lot of the people we work with that, hey, life is life. And we're going to face things that are difficult, and it's just part of life. We can't avoid it. Tragedy, it could be something that we can learn from. But my life scripture is Genesis 50:20. That's what I want to start this off with, is that you intended to harm me. He's talking about Joseph, and Joseph's talking to his brothers, right? You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. So if we look at everything we're going through, and it's hard when we're going through stuff, right? It's really hard because we don't understand it. It's painful. It's lonely. It's scary. I mean, as a teenager being abused, and there's a lot of questions I had, and I didn't understand it. But what I know now is that God had a greater plan for me. And he revealed it to me 14 years ago. You see, because in Psalms 139:16, it says, your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. That's Psalms 139:16. David's talking to God, praying to God about this. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. And I go back to the question I ask all the time. Either we believe God is either everything or he's nothing. The scripture says that he saw my unformed body and all my days were ordained before one of them came to be. Then what's happening today is exactly as it's supposed to be happening in God's world, because nothing, absolutely nothing, happens in God's world by accident. So if we all believe that the Bible is the truth, and I do, then like Psalm 136:16 says, everything that happens to me and to us is all preordained by God before we were even conceived. And people can't grasp it. I talked to a pastor one time, and he said, Randy, God had nothing to do with your abuse. Well, wait a minute. Either God is everything or God is nothing. He either preordained my days or he didn't. Now, I want you to make sure you hear this. Make sure you hear this, please. God did not abuse me. God did not abuse me. A lot of people, when I talk about this stuff, God never abused you. I didn't say he abused me. Man abused me because man had free will in what God gave him. And God was in the corner of my bedroom, weeping every time this happened. Before God even formed us in the womb, we were set apart. We were set apart. Jeremiah 1:5 says, and these are a couple of the scriptures that, before I get on, when I get the opportunity to teach at church on the platform, or before I go public speaking or anything, I read Jeremiah 1:5 through, I think it's 10. But Jeremiah 1:5 says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. So before he formed us in the womb, he knew me. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Okay, yeah, he's talking about Joseph, but if the nations is this. All a nation is a group of people. Because I wanted to know what nations was before I would speak out. And we have a Messianic rabbi that is a very good theologian, and I go over all my stuff with him to make sure I'm saying it right. But a nation is just a group of people. So he had appointed me a prophet over the nations of abused men. That's how I look at it. There's nobody else doing what I do. There's a couple groups out there that do online stuff, but nobody is a voice as boisterous as I am about the sexual abuse of men and what's happening in marriages and everything else. I don't dance around. I don't tap dance around. I tell the truth. I've done my research. I've worked with some of the best people in the industry. And then Jeremiah 1:10 says, "See, today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant." And that's basically what I'm doing on a lot of different levels. Sometimes I got to go and uproot and tear down a situation because the belief is so out of whack. Sometimes I got to go in and destroy it and overthrow their beliefs about sexual abuse of men and women. And then the hard part is to build and plant. And sometimes I know I've planted thousands of seeds in the last 14 years. And I don't always get to see the fruit, but every once in a while something pops up and they thank me for something I might have done 10 years ago, and I didn't even know that I did it. And so we have to look at things that happen in our life is that, why is this happening to me? And think of it as God must be wanting me to learn something. There's got to be a lesson in this that I have to learn. Maybe something in the future I'm going to be able to use this with. And I know that's really hard, because if God would have told me, I'm putting you through this, Randy, because in 2006 you're going to get sober, then you're going to write an international best-selling book, and then you're going to start talking about this all over the world, I'd say, no, I'm sorry. You're not going to put me through that kind of garbage just so you can use me to do that kind of stuff. That's pretty cruel. So like my therapist said at the time, it's none of your business, Randy. Like it says in Alcoholics Anonymous, more will be revealed, and more keeps on getting revealed. You know, one of the things like the build and the plan, and I know definitely that one of the things I do is I've been called out to build a community that wants to face the stigma that sexual abuse has no effect on a man's life, and believe me, it has bad effects. This guy, this Lang Martinez in LA that I'm working with, he gave me permission to use his name. He wants it out there. He wants a story out there. So I'm not breaking confidentiality. I want to put that out there. He came to me through somebody that I've been writing blogs for about 4 years, and they just say, hey, you need to call Randy. And ever since then, he's been tough to work with. I mean, he was hurt badly by what happened in some of the premier nightclubs in Hollywood in the 80s. But he's coming along. And I often think that, well, if I wasn't here, who's he going to call? And that might sound kind of like, Randy, you're pretty full of yourself, aren't you? No, I'm not. So why does tragedy happen? Again, I don't think we'll ever know the exact reason, but I know for myself, I know why. And so I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna continue this conversation when we come back, talking about some good or bad. Okay, but this is all stuff that I think people that I believe people really need to hear, and hopefully it'll give them some clarification. It doesn't make it easy. Believe me, I know that it does not make it easy whatsoever, even when you have the answers. I just happen to be far enough along in recovery, and I've done so much work on this that, when I want to talk about something, I research it, and God just kind of directs me in the direction that I need to go. And the one thing I always say is, God, give me your words and use my voice, because my words will just come out all skewed. So that's That's my rock right there. Is that I believe that God has called me to do this. And I'm very passionate about helping people. Very, very passionate. Those that know me know how passionate I am. Okay. So again, thanks for joining. You're listening to Remnant Radio 100.1 FM. And we're going to listen to some Another in the Fire.